Jump Space is a game where you and up to 3 friends pilot a ship from a small rebellion into enemy territory to scavenge, destroy, unravel, and otherwise act as a small guerrilla warfare unit against an AI who seems to have taken over most of the galaxy. In this video, we'll have a quick dive into what the game is, how to play it, some tips and tricks, and anything else that I think might be helpful. I've included timestamps in the video in case there's something that you're specifically looking for, otherwise I'm just going to go through this in the order that I feel it is presented to you in the game. By the way, this is a new kind of video for me, so if you like it, make sure you hit that like button and let me know down in the comments, and I'll be sure to keep making more of this type of content. In the meantime, let's get into it. Before you can get into the meat of the game itself, you need to complete the tutorial mission, which is pretty painless if I'm honest. It teaches you the basics of how to loot, how to move, how to shoot, and how to, well, interact with the world, whilst giving a slice of the story that surrounds the game, but not shoving it down your throat. Once you finish that, you'll be brought into your hangar, which serves as your base for the game. It's here you can set up a lobby to let your friends join, jump into someone else's lobby, or simply decide to play in solo mode, which, long story short, is also pretty viable. There's a few NPCs around at this time, and you will pick a couple more up as you progress through the story, but to cover the important characters, Barrett here you can talk to about buying and upgrading ships. Barrett also tends to hand out most of the main questline missions. Bozzy here will be one of your shopkeepers later on, but we'll come back to shopping and currency later. Right now you can also talk to Bozzy about customizing your gear. And finally we have Vosk, who has a few minor quest lines, and will also act as a shopkeeper in a hopefully soon to be released patch. Additionally, you can find Buddy the robot here, just behind Barrett. We'll also come back to Buddy when we talk about solo play. With the characters out of the way, the two most important things in your hangar are that along this wall next to Barrett and Buddy, you will find all the components that you've unlocked for your ship. This will make a little more sense once we've gone into finding components. But basically any parts that you found that can be installed on your ship will appear on this wall, and interacting with them here is how you can swap the parts in and out of the ship and or upgrade them. The upgrading process is fairly easy. Simply walk up to a component and hold the assigned key to upgrade, assuming you have the available currencies. Finally, we have the map table here, and it's here that we're going to get into the galaxy map itself and select our missions. Once you're in the map, you'll see there are multiple areas or sections. At the time of writing, there are only 5 of these sections that are available to players, though you'll only start with access to 1. However, the devs have been pretty open with how and when more content is coming to this game. I've got a guide currently scrolling through on the screen, but if you want to take a proper look at it, I'll make sure it's linked down in the description below. In each of these sections, you will see, well, not a small amount of information, but it's actually pretty easy to follow, so let's break it down. First, let's look at the map overall. Each section will tell you what missions are available, as well as how many unique items you still have to collect in this section. Now, I'm describing unique items as the components and map fragments that are available in each area, as once you've picked these items up, the map will no longer tell you that you have these collectibles available. That said, you can still find double ups of all the ship components, which is a great way to farm for upgrade materials. I'll cover these collectibles in a little more detail in a section later on, but for now, let's continue on with the map. As we zoom in on the map, we can see the individual missions along with some key information about them. In no particular order here, we can see the difficulty rating, which ranges as far as I know from trivial, easy, moderate, hard. I admit I haven't yet found a mission beyond this difficulty, but the indicator line suggests there is a 5th level. We can see the type of mission so we know what sorts of challenges we're going to face during the particular task, along with the estimated time of completion. Now, in my experience, this estimated time is aimed at people who play this game quicker than I typically would, as I've found missions tend to take a fair bit longer than described. That said, not only am I quite the loot goblin, I'm usually only playing in a party of 1 or 2, whereas this game is designed for 4. So if you have a full party, you'll probably find yourself coming in under par time. We can see which of the characters gave us this mission, and most importantly, we can see what rewards we'll get for finishing it. From left to right, the first reward tells us how much experience we will get, though leveling itself doesn't actually come with any perks. Yet. In the middle, we can see how many credits or currency we will gain, and finally, how many Materia Ingots we will get. Materia Ingots is the currency that we use to upgrade our ships, and completing missions is probably the most common way you will collect this currency, though not the only way. It's also worth noting that just because a mission is a higher difficulty doesn't necessarily mean you'll get better rewards for it either. As you can see here, this moderate cargo ship raid gives substantially better rewards than this hard sabotage mission. If you're also just looking for something quickly, you don't necessarily have to go in and check the details of every mission. From the overall views, you can see what type of raid a mission is. By seeing how many of these 5 bars are lit up, you can check the difficulty of a mission, and by seeing how many stars are lit up on the left-hand side, you can tell how long a mission is estimated to take. That's probably enough about this map though. Once a mission is selected, all party members have to select ready in order to launch. That may or may not have got on my group the first time. So far, every mission I've done in this game has started in this exact same area. So for the moment at least, it's safe to say that you will start here as well. Now this is important because before we actually get into the run, there are 2 opportunities here to earn materia, one of our forms of currency, which is going to be very important along the way. The very first thing we're going to want to do is actually head out of our ship to the top by heading out through one of the side doors and going immediately up to this small rock right in front of us. On top of the rock, we're able to find a little gnome called Nissy. You can either pick her up by hand or simply use your hook to collect her. Now, as far as I can tell, Nissy has no other use or achievements attached to her, or at least not at this time. So the best use of her is to pick her up every single run and simply put her immediately into the disposal unit, which is about the best way to make materia in this game. Additionally, there's a big block of materia just sitting here on your ship every time you start, which you should also put into the disposal unit to maximize your resources. resources. If you missed it during the tutorial, immediately behind the dematerializer is the crafting machine where you can spend your materia to make, well, just about anything. Some quick notes while we're down here. Just to the right of the crafting machine is where you load your ammo for the ship's main weapons. Inside the next room is where you can cook pizza, which is slightly cheaper than healing, though doesn't always give as much. That said, the pizza room also takes a few missions to unlock. Nearby, and actually all around, you'll find fire extinguishers on the walls. When you're under attack by enemy ships, or even the environment, things tend to ignite. So you want to learn where a few of these are to be able to put out those fires before they spread. And as we're already exploring, I'll note here that you can go to the outer wings here where each of the hook points corresponds with where you can place one of your replacement shields. I definitely recommend topping them up at the end of each of your missions. Now that you've got your start of match advantage, you can jump into your first task. This is where we get to our second map. During each mission in this game, you'll be given a series of options of which submissions you'd like to take in order to reach your final goal. It's important to make the right choices here, as making the wrong ones can mean that you fail to pick up the most important items such as ship components and map fragments. Now for the most part, I think this map system is fairly self-explanatory, but the basics are you can only follow the path along a straight line, so if you take the right turn to start off, you generally won't be able to get to the far left choices in the final rounds. So you need to look ahead and decide what missions, or more specifically what loot, are most important to you and your group, and decide where you want to go early on. You're also not able to backtrack once you've committed to a choice, so after you jump, your run is locked. That also means no, you can't complete every single one of these forks during a run. You only have enough fuel to get one jump per section to your final destination and then home. Assuming you survive, that is. As we make our first jump, we're presented with the main components of this game. Mission types, currencies, weapons, items, unique objects, and of course, enemies. We can also have a look for each of these things using the scanner on board the ship, which I'd highly advise you to take advantage of at the start of each section. Any object that isn't known requires a small interaction to scan it, otherwise major enemies, mission points, and most loot locations all show up here and are pingable, which is a great way to make sure my fellow loot goblins and I feel justified in collecting every single item that spawns in the game. So let's get into each of them. We've loosely covered mission types already in the map section, but specifically we've got salvage from wreckages, retrieve cargo packages, raid enemy ships, and then there are variations on each of these with various hazard stages of the environment. Typically, each mission contains a combination of fighting ship to ship, traveling to consoles and activating or defending operations, as well as ground infiltration and combat moments. Most areas where you need to go to ground will have landing bays so you can dock your ship and simply head inside. Fun fact, once you start the docking process, you're no longer required at the helm, so you can easily get up and leave the ship to start exploring or shooting your weapon whilst the vessel is still parking itself. Now, I did say most areas. A number of the smaller loot opportunities and a few quest points are only accessible by jumping out of the ship and flying over with your grapple hook or jetpack. Personally, I found it to be both time efficient and fun for both players to first destroy all enemy ships in the sky, and then as one player flies around to collect all the loot that said ships dropped, the other one takes advantage of the jetpack to simply fly around to these non-parkable loot locations and goblin everything up. Speaking of, what exactly is it that we're looting? There are multiple types of currency in this game, and I briefly touched on a couple of them already. Materia is what you will probably find the most of. This currency is only available mission to mission and will completely reset every time you start a new run. You use materia to build and craft weapons and items, make replacement components for your ship, and, well, really everything. Basically anything in this game that you can craft or repair requires materia, including reviving other players and making your pizza. Every single thing that you find in your mission will have the ability to be converted into materia by the disposal unit, but you may not want to dispose of everything. We also touched upon credits earlier in the map section, where I mentioned that each mission has a certain amount of credits that will come as a reward if you successfully complete it. The other way to get credits is the items that you find in game, as most items will also come with a creditary value, seen here. Any item that is on your ship at the conclusion of a mission will be converted into the credits based on this score, and these will be added to your player's inventory. Now, it's worth noting that at the time of writing, there's no actual use for these credits yet. However, it's likely that they're going to be used to purchase things from stores that aren't quite open yet. That's right, the ones run by Bozzy and Vosk. By the looks of things, Bozzy is going to allow you to buy basic components, gear, kit, materia, and whatnot to start your mission with, while Volk is going to allow you to start with artifacts, which I think is as good a segue as any. Artifacts are somewhat rare components that you can find when looting, and whilst they do have a materia value, it's definitely not the best use to simply dismantle them. Now, I admit it took me a couple of runs to figure this out, but the artifacts have to be actually installed on this specific section of the ship in order to activate or store them, which can be found by simply retracing these steps from the map area. When you install an artifact on the ship, it grants you its bonus, some of which range from pretty mediocre and some of which are outright broken. If you want to uninstall an artifact, just hit this button down here, though do note you will lose the artifact and any upgrades if you have them. Though to be clear, at the end of the mission, all artifacts will be uninstalled and handed over to Volk for story reasons. That said, you can upgrade most of the artifacts by sacrificing another artifact that you find into one that's already installed in the ship. So if you find one that you're particularly fond of and then you find a bunch that you think are rubbish or not applicable to your playstyle, install the one that you like and then sacrifice the others into it to upgrade the installed artifact to an even better one. Something else that's especially worth noting here is that any artifact that isn't installed when you jump space to the next section of the mission is going to be instantly destroyed. So make sure you install or otherwise use all your artifacts before jumping. While looting, you may also come across map fragments. Finding all the different map fragments in one area is how you unlock the next. So if you're trying to unlock more missions with bigger and better loot, make sure you prioritize any mission that says they come with a map fragment. The most valuable thing that you can find, in my opinion though, are ship components. When you first find a component and subsequently bring it back to your hangar, that component then becomes permanently available to your ship to set up, appearing on the earlier mentioned upgrade and parts wall in order for you to run it as part of your setup and also to be able to upgrade it. To bring it back to the hangar, simply make sure it's on board your ship before you jump. I like to place them on these convenient storage racks, and as soon as you make it home, the part will be available. Now you can find components more than once, and this is actually incredibly valuable as you get our least common bit of currency by doing this, Materia Ingots. These ingots are what you use to upgrade your ship's components, but the only other ways to get them are completing missions and quest lines. I think it's worth noting here that Buddy the Robot does say something about if you bring enough materia back, he will convert it into a materia ingot for you. However, whether or not it's just because I've never found enough in one mission or because this isn't an available feature yet, I've never actually had this happen. Hopefully it's there in the future, as that will give a great payoff to loot goblins like myself and really give you a reason to search every corner of every map for as much loot as possible to try and maximize that materia meter. But for now, quests, components, and missions are the only ways to get materia ingots. With that in mind, I'll admit the grind for these can be a little long as upgrade prices get pretty steep. All in all though, similar to artifacts, under no circumstances would I recommend dematerializing any ship components you find, as the materia ingots you get out of them are the most valuable currency in the game. Outside of this, you can find weapons, of which I believe there's currently 7 different varieties that spawn in up to 3 different tiers. The higher the tier, the better the weapon, and we'll touch on how to keep your gun in a minute. You can tell the tier of any weapon by simply looking at the number that appears here. 0 or no number means no tier, and then you have 1, 2, and 3 to represent their respective tiers, with 3 being the highest and the best weapons in the game at this time. Any gun that you find that you don't want to use can simply go into your ship and be converted into credits at the end of the mission, or if you get desperate, you can burn them for materia. However, I would recommend against this, as materia only lasts for the mission and credits are for life. Finally, there's miscellaneous scrap and other loose objects like fire extinguishers that you can just find throughout the world. These are pretty much grab it and dump it on the ship to turn into credits at the end of run items. Basically, if you can pick it up, throw it on the ship. If it has no predatory value, dismantle it into materia. If it does have predatory value, or better yet, materia ingot value for when you finish your run, put it into the storage racks and wait until you finish. But of course, if you find practical items like ship repair kits or shield units, pop them onto your storage racks, as you're probably going to end up needing them. And if you don't, they still turn into credits at the end of the run anyway. Speaking of, at the end of your run, anything on your ship that isn't currently on your person will be converted into credits, ingots, or otherwise dismantled. Not a single thing on your ship is kept for the next run. The only way to keep items in multiple missions is to have them on your person. To this end, I'd recommend keeping your favorite gun on you at all times. Now, why only one, you might ask? That's because you're allowed to hold a maximum of 4 items at any time during this game. So as you already have your utility weapon, which does double as a pistol, and you're going to need that in most cases, as it's used to complete most mission objectives and unlock the most valuable of loot boxes. Also, grabbing a tier 2 or 3 weapon to carry around means you've already taken up half your slots. That leaves you with only 2 spaces to pick up and loot and bring everything back to the ship, which, especially during solo or duo runs, can make missions take quite a while, as you may find yourself running back and forth to collect everything. In fairness, I also suspect this is less of a problem in a full player lobby. Some missions will also put time limits on you and only allow you to be in an area for a certain amount of time to loot it, or only allow looting in an area for a certain amount of time after you've cleared all the enemies. These are typically done at the end of a mission cycle. If you're ever unsure of a ground complex, head in with only your pistol to make sure you can grab the maximum amount of items if need be, though with only 9 different missions currently available, you'll learn pretty quickly when you'll need your inventory and when you'll need firepower. You'll be able to tell if you're going to run out of time because the game puts a handy timer here. Some of them are because your area is genuinely about to self-destruct and be lost forever. Others, however, it's simply until an infinite wave of enemy ships is going to start spawning, which can make getting out of there a little bit harder. Those ships, by the way, can also destroy your ship while it's parked, so just because you're underground doesn't mean you're immune to them. So as I alluded to earlier, this is definitely easier with 4 people, so sometimes it's just worth jumping into random lobbies. Speaking of, in my limited experience jumping into lobbies, people seem to be pretty friendly and chill in this game, so I wouldn't worry too much about being Call of Dutied. On not dissimilar lines, you can play this game completely solo. In fact, when you do, Buddy the Robot will come along to join you for your objective, objectives. Which, by the way, is actually a pretty plausible playstyle, as I found Buddy to be more than adequate on multiple missions that I've taken him out on, and a great backup if my mission companions disconnect. If you keep your ship upgraded, Buddy will use the weapons on board, as well as craft things as you need them just like another player would. However, the more common way to play is with friends. Whilst the game is designed for 4 players simultaneously, I've played mostly with my best friend Cubic.
Do it, I dare you, I double dog dare you.
And yes, this is absolutely the part in the video where I shamelessly tell you that you should come back to check out our live plays on Twitch and here on YouTube, where we stream every Sunday and every second Monday night at about 8 PM Australian Eastern Standard Time. Come on, I had to get one in there. But how about something for you? Why don't I go through a bunch of tips and tricks that I wish I'd known when I was first starting out in the game? You don't need to fight ships in a dogfight, particularly if you have a group and only one gunner seat. You can actually jump out into space, fly around with your jetpack, and use the grip hook to latch onto enemy ships and shoot its power cells right out from under it. Which, by the way, is enormously satisfying. When in solo mode, Buddy can instantly teleport certain loot items straight to the ship for you to save you a million trips, though not all lootables and not quest items. When you pick up extra materia from a ship that you've destroyed, it appears in the small canisters on either side of your wings. Don't forget to occasionally take this materia and actually send it down to the dematerializer and crush it. It's also worth noting that in solo mode, Buddy will do this automatically for you.
Clearing out the materia filters.
In most buildings, you can find these small lockers, which often contain credits and materia in them. Never forget to loot. When you're on the ground, look for small tarps, as materia and credits often spawn on top of them. Alright, this one's a little longer, but stay with me. The default installation configuration for component options are not always necessarily optimized, and you can actually fit many more components onto your ships if you do it manually. If you're not quite sure how this works, there are 3 squares in this panel: unpowered, protected, and unprotected. Without getting too complicated, a component simply needs to make sure every one of its squares is connected to either a protected or unprotected square in order to be powered. Don't worry too much about unprotected squares, they sound much scarier than they are. You can flip and change these components at will, and you can add more power units by either upgrading or finding power components. Have a play around and you may find that you get an extra cannon or 2 on your ship. Heavy cargo or heavy items will take up the slot of your hands and will not allow you to change items no matter how many free slots you have. The only way to get rid of it is to drop the item, so if there's enemies around, you should either have a teammate with you for firepower or be prepared to rapidly drop your weapon and shoot. You can make shields in the small creator behind the dematerializer and should often make sure that your shields are restored before starting each mission. They're relatively cheap and they absolutely come in clutch, especially when the meteors start falling. If you have ship repair kits available, in solo mode, Buddy will repair your ship automatically while you're flying. At the start of your game, if you make a set of 3 to ensure he will always have some, he'll always jump into action when needed. You can only join a game at the very start of a mission, so if you try to join a lobby that's halfway through, you'll be in the loading screen until they get to the next jump point. Similarly, if you have a friend who drops out, they'll need to wait until you get to the next jump point in order to join, but they need to make sure that they're sitting in the loading screen before you jump. If you're not seated during a jump, you will simply die. If you are outside the ship during the jump, you will somehow stay with the ship, but you will still die. And yes, you can sit on the toilet. It's actually an achievement. Handheld guns won't friendly fire, but ships and explosives will. During the raid cargo missions, containers will generally open, not near where the player is. So to minimize how far containers need to be transported, leave extra party members at the back or the back corners of the room. This isn't 100% of the time, but it does tend to be away from where players are. Whilst we're grabbing cargo, consumables like portable shields and damage amplifiers come in absolute clutch in rooms like this, where you can camp in one area for a while, drawing enemy fire whilst another player or 2 run for cargo. There's a quick dump port on the side of every ship that allows you to send whatever you're carrying straight to your ship's inventory bay, right down next to the dematerializer. So you can save a lot of time by loading everything into there when you need to make multiple trips or otherwise under the time crunch. Now, if you're particularly desperate for starting materia for any reason, you can actually go into any random mission, grab Nessie, leave the mission while she's in your inventory, and then she'll come back with you to the hangar where you can start the mission you actually want to do and have 2 Nessie to start off with. And if you really need it, you can get every member of your crew to do this so that you start with almost 150 materia before even making your first jump. And finally, if you're flying around trying to find the jump point and it's not appearing, don't forget to jump out of the pilot seat and actually select the jump point on the minimap. I definitely haven't done this multiple times. And this is the part in the video where I say thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, make sure you hit that like button, and if you'd like me to cover anything else or get some more jump space content up, let me know down in the comments. I genuinely really enjoyed making this video, so if it's the type of thing that people want to see again, I will absolutely make more of it. With that said, next week we will be returning to our regularly scheduled shenanigans with Halo the Legendary playthrough's 3rd episode launching.
I'm so far from alive.
So if you want to hang around for a couple of laughs, make sure you hit that subscribe button. That's all for now. I'll see you in the next one. Bye!